You clicked on this video because somewhere inside you, there is a voice that keeps saying the same thing. Something needs to change. Not a small adjustment, not a new app, not another motivational speech. Something fundamental, something deep. And that voice is right, because the person you are right now was built by the environment you never questioned, the habits you never chose, and the noise you never learned to filter. And here is what this video is going to give you. By the end of it, you will have 12 silent habits that, practiced consistently over the next 6 months, will rebuild the operating system of your mind. Not theory, not philosophy for the sake of philosophy. A real map, the kind of map that the samurai Miyamoto Musashi followed when he disappeared from the world, lived in caves, trained in silence, and came back as the most undefeated swordsman in Japanese history. But here's the thing most people miss. Musashi did not disappear to escape. He disappeared to build something that could not be built in the noise. And I know what that feels like. There was a time in my life when I was doing everything the internet told me to do. Waking up early, setting goals, posting about it. And nothing changed. Because the system I was using was designed to look productive, not to actually produce transformation. It was not until I went quiet, until I removed myself from the noise and sat with the discomfort of silence, that things actually started shifting. And today, I'm going to hand you the exact habits that made that shift possible. But there is one habit at the end, habit number 12, that ties everything together. Without it, the other 11 will eventually collapse. So stay until the end. If this is the kind of content that speaks to you, if you are serious about building real discipline and not just watching videos about it, consider subscribing. This channel is built for men who are done with surface-level advice and ready to go deeper. One click and you will not miss what comes next. So, let us begin. And to understand why these 12 habits work, you first need to understand a problem that almost nobody talks about. We live in the loudest era in human history. Not in terms of volume, but in terms of input. The average person today consumes more information in a single day than someone in the 15th century consumed in an entire year. Your brain was never designed for this. It was designed for long periods of silence, interrupted by short bursts of stimulus. What we have now is the exact opposite. Constant stimulus, interrupted by rare and uncomfortable moments of silence. And what does that do to you? It fragments your attention. It makes your sense of self dependent on external validation. It keeps you in a permanent state of reaction instead of creation. A study published in Scientific Reports tracked adults over 21 days and found that people who intentionally chose to spend more time alone reported significantly lower stress and a greater sense of personal freedom. But here is the key word: intentionally. Chosen solitude reduces stress. Forced isolation increases loneliness. The difference between the two is not circumstance, it is intention. Musashi understood this 500 years before any psychologist put it in a paper. He wrote a document called the Dokkodo, which translates to the way of walking alone. 21 precepts he wrote 1 week before he died. And the entire philosophy comes down to one idea. The path to mastery requires learning to walk alone. Not forever, not as punishment, but as training. Strategic solitude is not running away from life. It is building the internal architecture that allows you to show up to life differently when you return. So here is what the next 6 months look like if you commit to this. Habit number 1. Wake up before the world does. This is not about the time on the clock. This is about the principle. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you are handing the first minutes of your consciousness to someone else's agenda. Notifications, news, messages. You are reactive before you even get out of bed. The habit is this. Wake up at least 1 hour before you need to engage with anyone or anything. No phone, no music, no podcast, just silence. Use that hour for yourself, not for productivity, for presence. Sit with your own mind. Let the thoughts come, let them pass. This is where self-awareness begins. Not in journaling apps or guided meditations, but in the raw, unfiltered experience of being alone with your own thoughts in the quiet of early morning. Research on the brain's default mode network shows that this network becomes most active during periods of quiet, undistracted solitude. It is responsible for self-reflection, problem-solving, and creativity. Every time you skip this and jump straight into stimulation, you are robbing your brain of its most powerful processing mode. Musashi woke before dawn every single day of his adult life, not because he was disciplined for the sake of discipline, because he understood that the first hour of the day sets the trajectory for everything that follows. And here is something most people do not realize. The quality of your morning is not determined by your morning routine. It is determined by the night before. If you go to bed scrolling, consuming, reacting, your mind carries that momentum into sleep and wakes up in the same state. The morning silence only works if you protect the transition into it. So the real habit is not just waking up early. It is ending your day with intention and beginning your next day with ownership. Most people have never experienced a morning where their first thought was their own. Try it for 1 week. You will understand why it changes everything. Habit number 2. Train your body every single day. Not sometimes, not when you feel like it, every day. This does not mean you need to destroy yourself in the gym 7 days a week. It means you need daily physical exertion that challenges you beyond comfort. 3 days of structured resistance training, 2 days of movement like walking, stretching, or martial arts, 2 days of lighter recovery activity. The body and mind are not separate systems. They are one system. When your body is weak, your discipline is weak. When your body is strong, your capacity to endure discomfort in every other area of life increases. There is a reason every serious philosophical tradition, from the samurai to the Stoics, placed physical training at the center of their practice. It is not vanity, it is foundation. 6 months of consistent daily physical training will change your posture, your energy, your confidence, and most importantly, your relationship with discomfort. You will learn that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that growth is happening. Habit number 3. Remove social media from your phone. Not reduce, remove. Delete the apps. All of them. A study published in JAMA Network Open followed young adults through a 1-week social media detox and found that anxiety symptoms dropped by 16%, depression symptoms by nearly 25%, and insomnia symptoms by almost 15%. That was 1 week. Imagine 6 months. But this habit is not just about mental health statistics. It is about reclaiming your attention. Social media is an attention economy. You are not the customer. You are the product. Every minute you spend scrolling is a minute you are training your brain to seek external validation, compare yourself to curated highlight reels, and avoid the discomfort of being alone with your own thoughts. When you remove it, the first 2 weeks will be uncomfortable. You will feel bored. You will feel disconnected. Good. That discomfort is withdrawal. It means you are addicted. And on the other side of that withdrawal is something most people have not felt in years: mental clarity. The ability to hold a single thought for more than 30 seconds without reaching for your phone. The ability to sit in a room and think. Actually think. You will rediscover boredom. And boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the birthplace of creativity. Every great idea you have ever had came from a moment of mental space, not from a moment of stimulation. When you fill every empty second with content, you eliminate the mental space where original thought is born. The samurai understood this. Musashi did not carry entertainment on his journeys. He carried a sword, a brush for painting, and his own mind. That was enough. Because a mind that has space to think is the most powerful tool a human being can possess. After 6 months without social media, you will feel like you have been given extra hours in each day. Because you will have been. The average person spends over 2 hours a day on social platforms. That is 14 hours a week, 60 hours a month, over 360 hours in 6 months. That is 15 full days of your life. What could you build with 15 extra days? Habit number 4. Read for 1 hour every day. Not scrolling articles, not watching summaries, reading. It with a physical book or a dedicated reading device with no notifications, no distractions, and engaging deeply with a single text for 1 full hour. The reason most people cannot focus is not because they lack willpower. It is because they have trained their brain to consume information in fragments. Social media posts, headlines, short videos. Your attention span has been conditioned to expect novelty every few seconds. Deep reading reverses this. It forces your brain to sustain attention on a single thread of thought. It builds the neural pathways that sustained focus requires. And the content matters. Read philosophy. Read psychology. Read biography. Read about the minds of people who built something meaningful with their lives. Not self-help books that tell you what to do, books that show you how others thought. Because transformation does not come from tips and tricks. It comes from upgrading the quality of your thinking. Habit number 5. Write every day. This is not about becoming a writer. This is about processing your own mind. Most people have never sat down and asked themselves what they actually think. Not what they were told to think. Not what their friends think. Not what the algorithm told them to think. What they actually, independently think about their own life. Writing forces you to articulate the vague feelings and half-formed ideas floating around in your head. It turns fog into clarity. The habit is simple. Every evening, sit down and write for 15 to 20 minutes. No structure required, no prompt. Just ask yourself, what did I notice today? What am I avoiding? What do I actually want? Over 6 months, this practice will give you something that most people spend their entire lives without: a clear, honest relationship with your own mind. Habit number 6. Build one skill with obsessive focus. Most people are generalists by accident. They dabble in everything and master nothing. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack the discipline to stay with one thing long enough for mastery to emerge. During your 6 months, pick one skill, just one. Something that genuinely matters to you. Not something trendy, not something you saw someone else doing. Something that, if you mastered it, would fundamentally change your life or your ability to create value. Then, practice it every single day. Research by Philippa Lally at University College London found that it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. But that is just the beginning. 66 days gets you to automaticity. 6 months gets you to competence. 2 years gets you to mastery. Most people never reach competence because they quit at week 3 when the initial excitement fades and the real work begins. The silent habit is this: show up for the skill even when you do not feel inspired, especially when you do not feel inspired, because inspiration is not the fuel. Discipline is the fuel. Inspiration is just the spark. Musashi spent decades perfecting his technique with 2 swords, not because he had no other options, but because he understood that depth creates power in a way that breadth never can. The person who has practiced one kick 10,000 times is more dangerous than the person who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time. That principle applies to everything: your career, your craft, your thinking. The modern world rewards the appearance of expertise. Social media is full of people who know a little about a lot and present it with confidence. But real competence, the kind that changes your life and earns genuine respect, comes only from sustained, focused practice over long periods. Choose your skill, commit to it, and do not expect the results to be visible for months. The bamboo tree grows underground for years before it breaks through the surface, but when it does, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Your skill development works the same way. Trust the process even when you cannot see the growth. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, because if you have been following along, you might be noticing a pattern. These habits are not complicated. Wake up early, train, remove distractions, read, write, build a skill. None of this is revolutionary information. So, why does almost nobody do it? Because knowing what to do and having the mental operating system to actually execute it consistently are two completely different things. And that is exactly why I built the KMA method. It is a 5-minute daily practice designed to give you the mental control and inner calm that makes every other habit possible. Think of it this way. These 12 habits are the building. The KMA method is the foundation. Without the foundation, the building collapses every time life gets hard. I used it myself during my own 6 months of silence, and it was the one thing that kept everything else from falling apart. If that sounds like something you need, the link is in the description. But let us keep going, because we are only halfway through. Habit number 7. Fast from opinions. This might be the most underrated habit on this list. Most people spend an enormous amount of mental energy forming, defending, and broadcasting opinions about things that have absolutely no impact on their life. Politics they cannot control. Celebrity drama they do not know. Debates on the internet with strangers they will never meet. Every opinion you hold occupies mental bandwidth. Every argument you engage in drains energy that could be used to build something. The habit is this. For 6 months, stop offering opinions unless directly asked. Stop engaging in debates. Stop consuming opinion-based content. News, commentary, reaction videos, all of it. Instead, redirect that energy inward. Focus on your own life, your own growth, your own problems. Musashi wrote in the Dokkodo, "Do not pursue the taste of good food." He was not talking about diet. He was talking about the human addiction to stimulation and the discipline required to walk away from it. Opinions are intellectual junk food. They taste good in the moment, but they build nothing. Habit number 8. Fix your sleep. Everything else on this list becomes 10 times harder if you are sleeping poorly. And most people are sleeping poorly without even realizing it. The habit is not just about hours, it is about architecture. Go to bed at the same time every night. Wake up at the same time every morning. No screens for at least 1 hour before sleep. No caffeine after noon. Sleep in complete darkness and cool temperature. This sounds basic because it is basic. But basic does not mean easy. Most people cannot do this consistently for even 2 weeks. And research consistently shows that sleep is the single most important factor in cognitive function, emotional regulation, and physical recovery. You cannot build discipline on a foundation of sleep deprivation. Your willpower, your focus, your emotional stability, all of it is directly tied to the quality and consistency of your sleep. Fix this first. Everything else gets easier. And I will tell you something that took me a long time to learn. Most of the discipline problems people think they have are actually sleep problems. When you are sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and long-term thinking, operates at significantly reduced capacity. You are essentially trying to build a disciplined life with a compromised brain. It is like trying to run a marathon with a broken ankle. No amount of motivation compensates for a brain that is not functioning properly. The samurai had a concept called zanshin, which means remaining awareness. It is the ability to stay alert, present, and composed after an action is completed. You cannot maintain zanshin when you are exhausted. Your awareness narrows, your reactions slow, your emotional regulation deteriorates. Sleep is not a luxury. It is the biological prerequisite for every form of mental performance. Treat it that way. Habit number 9. Practice strategic silence. This is different from habit 1. Habit 1 is about the morning. This is about your entire communication pattern. Most people talk too much. They talk when they are nervous. They talk to fill silence. They talk to seek validation. They share their plans, their progress, their goals with anyone who will listen. And every time you do that, you leak energy. There is a psychological phenomenon where sharing your goals gives you a premature sense of accomplishment. Your brain releases the same reward chemicals as if you had actually achieved the goal, so you feel satisfied without having done anything. The habit is this: stop announcing what you are doing, stop updating people on your progress, stop seeking feedback from people who are not qualified to give it. Work in silence. Let results speak. For 6 months, the only people who need to know what you are building are you and the people directly helping you build it. Everyone else can find out when it is done. Habit number 10. Audit your relationships ruthlessly. This is the hardest habit on this list for most people, because it requires you to look honestly at the people in your life and ask a question that nobody wants to ask. Does this person make me stronger or weaker? This is not about cutting people off cruelly. It is about being honest about influence. You are the average of the environments you tolerate. If the people around you are unmotivated, negative, constantly distracted, and living without intention, you will absorb that energy no matter how disciplined you think you are. The habit is this: during your 6 months, reduce contact with anyone who drains your energy or pulls you toward your old patterns. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to have a dramatic conversation. Just become less available. Spend more time alone or with the 1 or 2 people who genuinely challenge you to be better. And if you look around and realize nobody in your life is pushing you to grow, that is the most important information you will ever have. Because it means you need to build a new circle, and the best way to do that is not to go looking for new friends. It is to become the kind of person that serious, disciplined, growth-oriented people want to be around. Fix yourself first. The right people will appear when you become the right person. During my own 6 months of silence, I lost contact with several people I used to spend time with regularly. Not because I decided to cut them off, but because when I stopped participating in the activities that connected us, distractions, complaints, mindless socializing, the relationships simply dissolved, and what replaced them was something better. Fewer people, but deeper connections. People who did not need me to perform. People who respected silence. People who were building something with their own lives instead of watching others build. That is the natural result of raising your standards. You do not lose real friends. You lose relationships that were never real to begin with. Habit number 11. Create something every single day. Not consume, create. This is the dividing line between people who change and people who just learn about change. Consumption is passive. Creation is active. It does not matter what you create. Write a paragraph. Record a voice note. Build something with your hands. Cook a meal from scratch. Sketch an idea. The point is not the output. The point is the act of bringing something from inside your mind into external reality, because that is what building a new life is. It is the daily act of creation. You are not discovering who you are. You are creating who you are, every single day. And the habit of daily creation builds something that no amount of consumption ever will. Agency. The felt sense that you are not just a passenger in your own life, but the architect of it. And now we arrive at habit number 12, the one that ties everything else together. Sit with yourself in silence for 5 minutes every day, with no escape. That is it. 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no journaling, no guided anything. Just you, sitting, breathing, being present with whatever comes up. This sounds almost absurdly simple, and that is exactly why almost nobody does it. Because those 5 minutes will be the most uncomfortable part of your entire day. In those 5 minutes, every emotion you have been avoiding will surface. Every fear you have been distracting yourself from will knock on the door. Every truth you have been running from will sit down across from you and wait. And that is the point. The reason most people cannot sustain the other 11 habits is not lack of knowledge. It is not lack of motivation. It is because they have never built the ability to be present with discomfort without reaching for an escape. Every time discipline gets hard, they reach for their phone. Every time the work gets boring, they switch tasks. Every time an uncomfortable emotion surfaces, they distract themselves. This 5-minute practice is the antidote. It trains the one muscle that makes every other muscle possible. The ability to stay, to not run, to sit with what is uncomfortable and choose to remain anyway. Musashi spent years in caves, alone. No entertainment, no stimulation, just himself and the silence. And he did not come out weaker. He came out as the most formidable human being of his era. Not because the cave gave him power, because the cave stripped away everything that was not power. That is what these 5 minutes do. They strip away the noise. They strip away the persona. They strip away the stories you tell yourself about who you are and force you to sit with who you actually are. And from that place of raw honesty, real change becomes possible. Psychologists call this emotional self-regulation through intentional solitude. Musashi called it the way of walking alone. I call it the foundation of everything. If you can sit in silence for 5 minutes and not run, you can sit with a difficult workout and not quit. You can sit with a boring practice session and not switch tasks. You can sit with the discomfort of growth and not retreat to your old patterns. This is the habit that builds the builder. And this is why I said at the beginning that without habit 12, the other 11 eventually collapse. Because the other 11 require discipline, and discipline is not a personality trait, it is a skill. And this 5-minute practice is how you train it. Now, let me be honest with you about something, because this channel does not deal in false promises. You will not be a completely different person in 6 months. That is not how transformation works. What will happen is this. In the first month, you will feel uncomfortable. The silence will be loud. The urge to go back to your old patterns will be strong. In the second month, things will start to settle. The habits will feel less forced. You will start noticing small shifts in how you think and how you respond to situations. By month 3, other people will start noticing something different about you. They will not be able to name it, but something will feel different. By month 6, you will look back at the person you were and barely recognize them, not because you changed your circumstances, because you changed your operating system. The way you think, the way you respond, the way you carry yourself, the way you relate to discomfort. And here is what nobody tells you about that transformation. It happens in silence. It does not happen on social media. It does not happen in conversations. It does not happen where anyone can see it. It happens in the quiet moments when nobody is watching and you choose to do the hard thing anyway. That is what the Dokkodo teaches. That is what Musashi demonstrated with his entire life. He did not seek recognition for his transformation. He did not announce his journey. He disappeared into the mountains, into the caves, into the silence. And when he returned, the results spoke for themselves. Over 60 duels won. Not because he had the most natural talent, but because he had the deepest practice. He outworked everyone, not in public where people could applaud him, but in private where nobody could see him. That is the kind of transformation these 12 habits create. The kind that starts invisible and becomes undeniable. And there is something else that happens during those 6 months that I did not expect when I went through it myself. You discover who you actually are when you are not performing for anyone. Most people have never experienced that. They have spent their entire adult life being observed, judged, liked, commented on. Their sense of identity is tangled up with how other people perceive them. When you remove that audience, when you stop performing, something strange happens. You feel empty at first, because the person you thought you were turns out to be mostly a character you were playing for other people. And then, slowly, something more authentic starts to emerge. Something quieter, something stronger, something that does not need applause to feel real. That is the person you are building during these 6 months. Not a new performance, a real foundation. That is the samurai way. That is the way of walking alone. Now let me bring this full circle. If you have watched this far, you are not a casual viewer. You are someone who is ready for something different. And I want to make sure you have every tool you need. The KMA method was built for exactly this kind of transformation. 5 minutes a day, mental control and inner calm. It is the practice that makes all 12 of these habits sustainable. Not for a week, not for a month, for life. It is the same practice I used during my own period of silence, and it is the reason I am here talking to you today instead of still stuck in the cycle I was in before. The link is in the description. If these 12 habits are the map, the KMA method is the compass. And one more thing. I want to hear from you. Not about what you are planning to do. Tell me, which one of these 12 habits scares you the most? Drop it in the comments. Because the one that scares you the most is probably the one you need the most. That is how growth works. It does not live where you are comfortable. It lives where you are afraid. If this video gave you something real, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Not 10 people, one. The person who came to mind right now while I was talking. Send it to them. And if you are not subscribed yet, this is what this channel is about. Real strategies for real transformation. No hype, no shortcuts, just the work. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. There is a Japanese proverb that says, "The bamboo that bends in the storm does not break." But here is what that proverb leaves out. The bamboo only bends because it spent years growing in silence, building root systems nobody could see, developing flexibility that nobody noticed until the storm arrived. You are the bamboo. These 6 months are the root system. The storm will come. It always does. Life will test you. Relationships will challenge you. Circumstances will shake you. And when that moment arrives, you will not break. Not because you are tough, not because you are lucky, but because you spent 6 months in silence building something real. Something deep. Something that cannot be faked or borrowed or bought. That is the promise of this path. Not an easy life, a strong one. Now close this video and go be silent.